Welcome to the ArcaneMystic, your weekly sanctuary for health, well-being and spiritual exploration. Whether you're delving into the healing power of frequency medicines, uncovering hidden wisdom, or seeking a deeper connection on your journey back to self, this podcast is a guide to the mystical side of life. Join us each week as we explore ancient practices, modern techniques, and timeless truths that help you unlock your true potential. We bring together a community of like-minded souls who are passionate about spiritual growth and personal transformation. This podcast is about the soul's journey and the wisdom that lies within. So if you're ready to elevate your mind, body and spirit, subscribe to the Arcane Mystic today. Let's awaken the inner mystic and embark on a journey of discovery together. Remember, the journey to self is the most powerful journey of all. Welcome to this broadcast of the Arcane Mystic. Today we have the wonderful Fiona Aedgar, who is an astrologer. Love her work. Fiona, please do tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Fiona. I live in Denmark now, but I'm originally from Northern Ireland. And I have been studying astrology for 23 years, I think. I've been a professional astrologer for 11 years. I'm a teacher of astrology. You could say that it's my biggest obsession.
The thing that I love about your work as well is how you integrate the archetypes with it, number one. Also, as well, your ancestral wisdom is another thing that sits there with that, and the balance of the dark and the light. So when you go on to have a look at the work that you're putting forward, you've got the planet of possibilities of things that could be incredible, but also shadow things that sit there, which is the balance for me of the psyche. So I found it really interesting. Um, the other thing that I will say here as well with regards to this is uh, people have been really, really happy with the work that you have done for them and been able to really benefit from the work that you do. And today I want to talk a bit about medical astrology because I think that it's important for our now. The reason why I think it's important is because I believe that astrology is one of the lost languages out of, well, in the topic of pseudosciences. And pseudo means false, but as we're starting to see now, there's a lot more truth in, different areas that have the archetypes than what we're seeing now within like kind of monotheistic ways of doing things. So we're currently in Neptune in Pisces, which I find quite an interesting time. Everybody's at the moment and everybody's kind of moving towards the mental health thing, or they have done for the past 11 years, and we're moving out of that. What have you found within this period with people at the moment?
Oh, Neptune and Pisces has been a bit of a tricky one. So we have got like mass delusion. We've also got things like Cancer skyrocketing, and I really connect Neptune with Cancer because Neptune has no boundaries and Cancer literally like takes over your body. So things like cancer, fungal infections, certain diseases, they all fall under Neptune. So it hasn't really surprised me to see some of the stuff going on. But again, astrology does not cause anything. It reflects our choices and the state of Earth.
And the good thing about that statement of what you've just said there is that it reflects. So, if we go back through ancient times, in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt and Hinduism, they used astrology, and Hindus still really use astrology to this day. And they use it for marriages, they use it for making big decisions. I still feel that within the hierarchelions that they use it there as well. But modern man has lost that part of their, connection, I would say, to the stars.
Hmm.
And in that disconnection, they're very lost. So for people now that are on their spiritual journey, how do you feel for those that are newbies that astrology could really benefit them today?
Well, when I'm not teaching astrology and doing readings, I'm still using it for a bunch of other stuff in my life. You know, my partner, I didn't date him until I saw his charts. So, my my belief in astrology is so strong that it can be used for absolutely everything. Starting a new job, getting a partner, your health, your ancestral trauma, your relationship with your parents. It's literally all in your birth chart.
Mm,
So it's such a useful guide and a map of your life, and it can prevent you from making mistakes. It can enable you to make the most out of some great periods. So I think that anyone who is interested in this should study it. Now the problem is that there's a lot of new age stuff out there. Probably 90% of astrology these days has a bit of a new age flavor to it, and not everything is positive. In fact, look at the past few years, we had a lot of dark stuff happening, and people were saying, well, why do these astrologers keep making these super positive forecasts? And they do that so they get more viewers on YouTube. But again, it's a lie. It's Neptunian astrology. It's not the truth.
illusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. And the thing is with it is that a lot of people want the fluffy side of things. They want to be kind of carried through. They only want to really look at Mercury, when it goes into retrograde and things like that, but they don't want to look at the bigger picture. And this is where there is a bit of a problem with that.
Hmm.
And we've got Neptune moving into Aries soon as well, which is going to be quite interesting. And
Yeah.
there's not loads of information because Neptune wasn't found or noticed at the same time as the other planets were. But if you kind of map it back, one of the bigger periods when Neptune was in Aries was when slavery was abolished or when we had, like the Civil War back then. But
Hmm.
moving on to medical astrology, I find this fascinating because I use this in work with my patients. And I like to look at their sixth house and things that are going on. I like to look at their transits and see what's happening in, the houses at this point in time. How have you
Hmm.
found that it has benefited you, or how have you been able to help others to build more awareness of this part of self?
Well, you look at their sixth house, look at their first house as well, as that represents the physical body.
Hmm.
Maybe let's say someone has their sixth houses in Pisces. So we know right now Saturn and Neptune are transiting their sixth house. So they could have those fungal infections going on, like we just talked about. They could have cancer. So we can look at that, and the ancient physicians used astrology to diagnose and to treat. And they thought that everything in life was caused by an imbalance of the elements.
Hmm.
So in your birth chart, if you've got loads of water, like me, you might be lacking in yang or fire energies. So how do we fix that? Well, we eat yang or fire foods. You use spices, you use any kind of herb or flower that has a solar energy or Mars energy. There are ways that we can balance that. It's really similar to Chinese medicine.
Three things I was going to bring up today because I found that Avicenna in his canon of medicine loved the way that he worked with regards to astrology and how he incorporated that in his whole system of healing. And he looked at the planets, the stars, the body, the plants that may have been, blooming at that point of your birth, the ones that you would need throughout your lifetime. There's so much that sits with that. And the other one that I found really interesting was Paracelsus as well, who would treat based on the great harmony. And what I found fascinating about his work is his belief in the microcosm and the macrocosm. So, kind of the human and the stars,
Mm,
the physical and the material, the divine to the natural. He really was encompassing all. And what he tried to do was to get us to look beyond just this material realm.
hmm.
But he was looked at as being a bit crazy. um, Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But then I suppose that the ones that really are different to what the status quo of society is trying to make us be will be looked at as crazy. But for savants like us, he's helped us throughout the ages. And he certainly tried to get people to look beyond just this physical realm. And with this, his work greatly inspired homeopathic doctrine. He
Mm,
also thought that the classical planets corresponded to the human organs within the body. And here we
Yeah.
can take that back to Mesopotamia. We can also look at that in accordance with Chinese medicine. And the plants are not the only things that were looked at with regards to astrology. There were crystals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've got the cell salts as well in homeopathy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the crystal energy or the information of that was quite lost.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all coming back again because everything really has a frequency.
It does. And this whole thing about crystals, like it's not a new age thing. It's a huge part of Vedic astrology. They will say, okay, you have to wear, this type of stone, if you were a Cancer or a Leo. So this is going back like many thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's really useful and it does help. Uh, Everything on the planet has the energy of one of the planets in it.
That,
If you look at Agrippa's work,
yeah.
he talks about that a lot, and you can balance your own energies that you have within your body with plants, with stones, with doing rituals to channel the energy of a star, for example. He was big into that,
Yeah.
and these are all the things that we've forgotten. And modern astrologers choose to talk about ascension and 5D or whatever. It's like they make it into such a joke, but it's such a useful system.
It is. There's one thing that I will read here that I found fascinating, and it was a book. The book title is called The Curious Law of Precious Stones. And this is back, say, 100 years ago, maybe a bit further. And the author is George Frederick Kuntz. And he stated that the Magi, the wise men, the seers, the astrologer of the ages gone by found much in the matter of gems that we have nearly come to forgetting. With them, each gem possessed certain planetary attractions peculiar to itself, certain affinities with the various virtues and zodiacal concordance with the seasons of the year. Moreover, these early sages were the firm believers in the influence of gems in one's nativity, that the evil of the world or in the world could be kept from contaminating a child properly, protecting protecting the child by wearing the appropriate talisman, natal and zodiacal gems. And what he was trying to say is that really throughout the whole ages, they've always been used. They were also used in certain church clothes at one point, but this has been quietly written out of everything so that people almost forget these innate abilities of nature's gifts, I call them.
Hmm. Yeah. And when you look at diamonds being the most popular engagement ring, and actually for a lot of people, the diamond is not a good stone.
Hmm.
It doesn't work with their charts, but yet every girl wants a diamond. It's like this brainwashing thing that comes in. I've got emeralds because that works best for my chart. So I have a bunch of them on.
Hmm.
Uh, so people really need to look into this more because it does work. It's not new age fluff.
No, it isn't. And the other thing as well with diamond is that in homeopathy it's called Adamus. He was supposed to be a forgotten about myth and legend or myth. And what that meant was incorruptible. So they believed that whoever wore that would not be corrupted by any kind of external influences. But again, looking at the natal charts, there may be gems and crystals and whatever to wear throughout different periods of the year in accordance to where the planets are moving through people's charts.
Yeah, that's right. They can change. Absolutely. And it's not just your sun sign. In fact, the most important thing to look at would be the ruling planet of your chart.
Hmm.
For example, someone that has a Sag rising, so their planet is Jupiter, yellow sapphire is the planet that's going to bring out all of that Jupiterian luck and energy. So it's worth hiring an astrologer to look at your chart. It's not something that I offer personally, but there are plenty of other good astrologers out there. Usually Vedic astrologers. They
Yeah.
haven't forgotten all of the old ways, but yeah.
And I find that with my Indian clients that I work with, they will have certain rituals on a set day with maybe certain herbs and affinities. And a lot of them live really happy lives because they are connected, back to the side of self that most are not aware even exists.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a large, something very important is to align ourselves with the solstices and the equinoxes.
Yeah.
And it brings something into your body that prepares you for like the next cycle. During the autumn time, we're supposed to be shedding things, shedding the skin during Scorpio season, making way for the new year. And because of Christianity and Islam and the Abrahamic religions, people stopped doing that. And that's another reason why we're suffering. And actually, we're stuck. We seem to be stuck. And when you align yourself with one of those events, you are continuing this cycle, this wheel.
Yeah. I was with Maria Wheatley for the equinox, and that was powerful.
Yeah.
Going to those ancient sites and really standing where the ancestors stood before, you could feel the energy that sits there. And then when I went home, I just felt just charged and just happy. And I don't know, it was just there was such a deep connection, and everybody felt it in an individual way. And I always
Mhm.
talk about ancient sites and visiting them because they give you something that just being stuck in your own village or place on a daily doing the mundane disconnects you from the anti-mundane, and you're in a stasis, really. You're stuck.
Mhm. Yeah. The land is very powerful. There are certain points. In Ireland, where I'm from, we have a lot of megaliths and, ancient sites. But unfortunately, a lot of them have been like connected with, St. Patrick, like over and over again. But a lot of them are still active. And when you go to one of those places, you can feel the power.
Mm.
And if you tap into the energy below the earth and try and like draw it up inside yourself, it's really fantastic.
Yeah. And the other good thing about astrology as well is that it connects you back to your own gnosis. So you won't work in an exact way that anybody has ever taught you because you found your own way. And this is where Thomas Sheridan goes on about emergent folklore, where we kind of continue on what has been passed down and gifted to us
Mhm.
in a lot of
Yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
that's true.
find that fascinating. The other thing that I found really interesting was the zodiacal cell salts.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that work, just to give a bit of background about cell salts, Schussler, he was working with homeopathy. Somebody donated their body to him, and they decided to want to find out what minerals were left after the body was burnt. And there was only 12, and they attributed this to the zodiac. And when I work with my patients, what I find is that if you give somebody that's feeling a little bit out of sorts, the three tissue salts that correspond to their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign, and they take that daily, what it does is that it really kind of brings that spring back into their step and they stop feeling squiffy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The cell salts do work. They really do. I've taken them for years. But the astrological correspondences will work because everything is connected to the planets. And our body is just a like reflection of everything that's going on in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Santos Bonacci spoke about this, but it does bring you back into alignment on a cellular level. And they're really great for kids. And this is the 12. Always go to a homeopath or figure it out what it is that you need in that point. I wouldn't take anything just for the sake of taking something,
Hmm.
but it is, again, connecting you back to a part of yourself that was not available before, before this. And the other thing that I really like about it is the deities that can be, corresponded to astrology. And if we look at medical astrology and we look at different deities that were there throughout the world that were healing, we had Jengu, the water spirits, we had Waka, and he was from Somali, and the Oromo people, but this was before Islam and Christianity. So they
Hmm.
were connecting with something that was in alignment with their ancestral message that they're now, disconnected from. But as we're growing through this kind of dark night of the soul on a planetary level, people are starting to connect back to their roots. And I do think that it is making a difference, on an energetic level on the planet.
Yeah, I think so, because a large part of this is really because we have these layers, generations of ancestral wounds, and they're not getting addressed anymore. And they are affecting everything, because it is true that, within and without, whatever's going on inside a person is being reflected in the world. And
Hmm.
I mean, I had a lot of them I had to deal with myself. But for me, venerating my ancestors and my ancestral deities was the only thing that could fix it. And I went like, psychology, and I went for therapy, and of course it helped. But for me personally, it did not fix anything.
No, it doesn't go to the root cause. And
No.
sometimes the root cause is not a now thing, it's from something way back in the past. And if you've got a call into a kind of spiritual side of your nature, sometimes you need to really work with people that are open and working with the parts of self that maybe they are trying to connect to, but are not at that moment in time able to see. So when you do an astrological profile for somebody, what you're actually doing is you're giving them back the power to take back control of their lives based on what it is that they see. And that is what
Mm.
I call true healing.
Yeah, it's very useful for that. And I think that true healing can only come from yourself. We can point people in the right direction. For example, I can look at someone's chart and I see that they have this generational wound going on. It's connected to nurturing or motherhood. And when just hearing that sets that person on a process,
Yeah.
to heal it. It's not my job, I think, or anyone's job to fix that. I
No.
don't like these new age people that say, yes, I'm going to give you this healing or do this ritual for you and it's going to fix all of your wounds. And well, it won't, because that person has to do it themselves.
And then you've given that person the power to sit in your seat of sovereignty. Yeah, and I speak about that in my book, The Road to Sovereignty. It's about really taking the power back because we've given a lot of power away throughout all of the years. And now, in this awakening process that people are going through now, the individual journey is the most powerful journey of them all. And there's different systems that you can use in conjunction with astrology. So there's Tina Kay who uses her runes, but her work can correspond greatly with yours.
Hmm.
When you look at, different modalities of working, you can also use the astrology with the tarot. You can use astrology with medicine. It's never ending. And the learning
Yeah,
process of it, where do you stop? You don't.
yeah, that's it. And you know what? I think that we love to complain about the world today, but actually, well, for us, if we live in the West, we're in a really like unique position where we have access to all of these different things. Like astrology, homeopathy, whereas in the past, during certain periods, that was totally banned. You could have got burnt at the stake for, even thinking about using astrology. But we have to make the most of it. And I think everyone watching this should make that a priority in their lives to identify and heal the ancestral wounds.
Mhm. And this is what we're here to do. This is what we're here to do. And we're in a real powerful point right now because that sits there with that as well. And also, as well, I think that since we've gone into the kind of one God, one medicine, it's taken us away from the polytheistic side of things where we can really open up, the planet of possibilities. And as I said in the talk with Thomas, you see patterns and trends with different deities and all the rest of it. And archetypes. I will put that in there with the different archetypes. But we'll find that regardless of where we're from in the world, that we've actually got more in common when we go back to our traditional ways than what we do now, in this kind of separation that they're making us feel at the moment.
That's right. We do have a lot in common. Like every tribe on Earth venerated their ancestors. It was within all groups of people. So we have a lot to work with.
Yeah, we certainly do. And then as well with regards to this, what would you say to people that are moving forwards with synastries? Because I speak to quite a few and they will have that done and it's not 100%, but they still kind of go for it.
Okay, with Sinistry.
Yeah.
Okay, so compatibility between two people then. That's another thing that's really got messed up in the modern age because if you Google for, great relationship aspects, they always focus on Venus and Mars, but actually it's the sun and the moon and how they interact with each other because uh if you're the moon person and they are the sun, there's going to be such a fusion, a bond. The luminaries are the most important within astrology and the ascendant. So you can have a lot of negative things in a synastry, but if you have some bonding between the sun and the moon, you can overcome a lot of stuff. But if you don't have that and everything else is great, then it probably still isn't going to make it.
No. And Indians, again, they're really strict with this. If something doesn't look right, they do not go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And think that it does really work there for them. Where else have you seen problems within the new agey kind of thing, just so that people can become aware?
Oh, within astrology, like nearly all of it, to be honest, especially the modern planets. Now, I have a beef with them. I think they are the Kali Yuga planets because we can't see them without technology. And astrology, until recently, was always practiced by the visibility of the objects in the sky. You would have to go outside and look. And when an object is visible in the sky, it's much more powerful. It's relevant. But these Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, can't see them without a telescope. Uranus sometimes, a tiny dot, but they're given way too much power. Now, what they do represent is the kind of complexities of modern life. And depending on where you stand, personally, I think, a couple of thousand years ago was better and more healthy than the way that we live today. So these modern planets are candy coated, like something shocking. They're also given qualities which traditionally, for thousands of years, were always ruled by one of the seven classical planets. So subversion, in my opinion.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that that sits in with it. And the TikTok videos that I see sometimes are just shocking. And the stuff that comes out and people are believing it. There's so many times that somebody's called me and they'll be like, yeah, I was on TikTok and it said X, Y, and Z and all of it. Yeah, it happened. And it again, it goes into the psyche and it's not, these things are not really allowing that person to have a look at their own charts and have a look and think, okay, that sits there. Maybe I can think in a different way or act in a different way to maybe not go into that phase of doing things. And they're taking it literally when really it could be used as a tool rather than, as a mode of a bit of self-destruct sometimes.
Yeah, astrology should not be used as fortune telling, for one thing. And astrology is a great tool to work on something, to develop, to grow, but it's not supposed to be great and, glossy all the time and candy coated. Then it's useless.
Yeah.
It's completely useless. And it's not astrology that they're practicing. It's some bizarre new age religion that they've cooked up on YouTube because it's not astrology. Because some of these people would cry, they wouldn't be able to handle a reading from a medieval astrologer or maybe some Vedic astrologers because they were like, yep, this part of your life is going to be a struggle, it's going to be painful. But everyone has a life area that is like that. For me, like I've always struggled with my health because I have autoimmune issues, stuff that I have no control over. Well, I have some control over it, but I'm always going to have to be more careful than the average person. But they will not mention anything useful, you know. So what's the point? It's garbage, in my opinion.
And you've really benefited as well from using holistic health with your health situation in conjunction with probably other bits, but done
Yeah.
right, very, very well with that, which again is just saying, that there are other ways that
Hmm.
sit there with that. The other question that I've got for you as well the kitchen utensils. So you did chart on where are they?
Do you know what? I have no idea where they are. So the chart, well, long story short, for everyone watching, I moved from Ireland to Denmark and an entire box of kitchen utensils went missing, but they were here. We moved them because I used some of them to cook dinner. Then they vanished off the face of the earth. We could not work out where they'd gone. So I cast a horary chart, which is a form of divination using astrology, which I have only recently started to use, to be honest. So I'm not an expert with horary astrology. So I tried to figure out where the hell have these things gone because it's driving me bonkers. And it honestly looked like they were in the house somewhere, but like locked in a place that is very hard to see. So we'll see. I live on a big property. There's loads of sheds. We've got barn, a stables, but maybe the elves have
Yeah,
taken them.
they're letting you know that they're there and maybe they need them.
Maybe they do. Yeah.
And talking about your move, for those that are unaware of astrocartography, can you give a little bit of background about that, please?
Sure. Astrocartography is a way that you can map your birth chart onto the globe. So, for example, you'll have a moon line that goes through a certain country. You might have Jupiter that goes through another. And it's really useful if you want to move around. It says where you might be compatible with people from this country over, your home country. It also says where you might experience violence or hardship. Now, you don't actually have to move to those locations to get the benefit of it. So let's say, actually, one of my Jupiter lines runs through the United States, and my biggest client base has always been from the United States. I don't live there anymore. I did for a couple of years, but 90% of my clients are from there.
Wow. So it can be used in so many different ways. And again, we're building awareness.
Yes, we are. It can also be used for ancestral stuff. And I don't want to talk too much about that because I'm writing a book on it. The last time I mentioned it, someone got wind of it and then tried to copy it and got it wrong. So I don't want to talk too much about it. But it can be used to heal your ancestral trauma. It can be used for past lives. It can be used for almost anything.
And again, a lot of people are working on that, the past lives. And within your book, it will give them the tools to be able to work on that for themselves.
Yes, everyone that has astrological knowledge will, basic astrological knowledge will be able to use it.
Yeah. And I think that, again, that's really important because we've got these new ages at the moment that are offering services of being able to clear things for people. And I find that a lot of people are ending up more messed up than what they were before they went in.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when it comes to entities and things like that, because I had a teacher a long time ago, a shamanic teacher, and he told me that if you're having trouble with an entity, you need to stand up to it and drive it away because they are attracted to people that are fearful, disempowered. It usually comes from childhood stuff. So you fix your childhood stuff and you grow stronger and more confident, the entities will leave. So no person with like singing bowls or, channeling aliens can remove this stuff for you.
No. And it costs a fortune. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you've got to unpick that as well as the ancestral knowledge that comes. And it is a gateway again. You can still use it because I think that within the kind of spiritual journey, we go down a lot of the wrong roads before we find the right ones. So it's a rite of
Yeah.
passage. Bit painful though. But yeah, I think that for today, I'm quite happy with that. I'm very,
Yeah,
very
that was great. Really
thank
great.
you
Yeah, really
so
enjoyable.
much. So any last messages that you would like to give to people today?
Well, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can go to my website, FionaAedgar.com. I also do daily free astrology forecasts on my Telegram channel. But other than that, address your wounds, because unless we all do it, we're going to be stuck in this place for quite some time.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun to me.
No.
Yeah. And Fiona also does some amazing Substacks as well. There's some really good content on there, going back to the archetypes. There's just really a wealth of knowledge that touches things within you. So please check that out as well. Also,
Thank you. Thank you.
amazing. Well, this will be the end of this broadcast of the Arcane Mystic. Thank you so much, Fiona, for joining me today. And until next time, see you soon.